everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles. We are wrapping up the book Mockingjay, which feels so weird because this is the last time we'll be wrapping up a book in the Hunger Games series. And per tradition, Gabby's here, of course.
Huh. Woohoo! Hi guys, I'm right back.
The grand finale of Hunger Games book wrap-ups. Woohoo! None of you can see it, but I'm currently throwing around a squishmallow dog named Frito. It's fine.
It's gorgeous, people. I wish you could see it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Frito is the other occasional unofficial host, along with Diana the water bottle.
Which are both very, very loved.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, guys. I'm slightly losing my mind. I've been painting all day, and this morning my head decided to try and murder me.
How so? Okay, that sounds intense.
Now with a headache, to the point where I had
Oh.
to lie down for a bit, and it may have delayed my work, hence why I'm finishing painting at like 11 o'clock at night. But it's fine.
However, it looks gorgeous, guys. All the time was very well spent.
Yoo-hoo! And bookshelf, and I can't wait to eventually show it off on the YouTube channel. So woohoo!
Woohoo! Yeah.
All right, and because it's late and I will be losing my mental state will be deteriorating and I will sound more and more insane as we keep going. Let's just dive into the book. So so Gabby, one thing I've been learning throughout the reread process of Mockingjay is that I definitely like, because the first time I read it when I was 14, I did not appreciate it as much as I do now. And like I kind of and I just remember the narrative going around like this book is boring, it's stupid. Here's why Mockingjay is a bad book. Like that was the hot take going around. I kind of bought into it. I don't know. What were your experiences the first time when reading Mockingjay?
Honestly, Mockingjay, like for me, was a very tough book to get through. Sorry to say this, guys. I mean, it's a great book. However, um, I think book one and book two were a little bit more like fast in a sense, at least for me reading it. And when I got to Mockingjay, I was expecting pretty much blood, like
Like
everything super
war.
fast. Exactly. And to me, at least about like Mockingjay and reading it, the final war was a little bit it was a little bit lackluster to me. I was expecting this massive war with all the different districts just like going against the capital, like pretty much World War Three or four.
World War
Um,
whatever, because it's distant future.
exactly. So I was expecting that. So to me, this type of war was very, very unexpected, and how I don't know, everything that happens in the treatment of several characters to me was very surprising. And to me, I was very, very mad for several things that happened in the book that we'll later talk on about.
Yeah, well, you know. But yeah, it's I don't know, because I feel like in a way, like Mockingjay was kind of ahead of its time, because this was like at the time when I was like obsessively reading, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, and like all these
Exactly.
yep, and like all these other series with like these big like epic battles in their finale. So that was kind of the thing we expected in our series, especially, young adult series. And Suzanne Collins was like, you know what, I'm gonna do something different. And in a lot of ways I do respect it. And she was like trying to kind of teach us all about the much more like ugly sides of war that no one really wants to talk about, because with all these other like, fantasy series that we read growing up, it was very much like a historic heroic win, like Lord of the Rings type, like woohoo, we're all fine, we're not traumatized. although actually
Exactly.
Although actually, Frodo was severely traumatized by the end of Lord of the Rings, but we're not talking about that today. Yeah. rewatching Lord of the Rings recently, it's like Frodo by the end of Return of the King. I didn't want to relate to him as much as I do now.
I mean, like those are like very long movies and even longer books. So we're focusing on Mockingjay. But yeah, it was this book sort of like it doesn't focus on the carnage of war, but it does focus on things that one doesn't really think about. I don't know, like the final battle to me seemed a little bit like a video game.
Hmm. Even
Yeah, almost like a
the
search party. Like a search port like party with little missions and like little levels to go in. And then the final twist to it all. To me, it was yeah, it is a book that pretty much questions the idea of what war is and the monstrosities of it, because most people think about the carnage, most people think about guns blaring and like people running, and in this case it was pretty much monsters and then gigantic kind of like avalanches of like this weird liquid and
Oh god,
and
that the like reading that part in the book is a lot more horrifying than watching the movie. Like that scene, I like reading it. I was like, because in the movie when that guy gets like stuck in the when he gets pushed into the liquid and strung up in the net, it's like he died a little more instantly in the movie, whereas in the book his death was a bit more like drowned out, like dragged out a little bit, and I was like,
yes, and it talked about topics about war that most books don't go a lot into, which is the idea of torture and the idea of what happens to the bodies of the tortured ones that get killed off. It's like, oh, what do you do with the bodies? And like in a very futuristic way, and like the monstrosity of them using those bodies to create monsters. And then not only that, but also the ending of the huge dictator that was Snow, and his ending being what he deserved, but at the same time, almost pardon, like not, yeah, pardoning him slightly, and realizing that the winning side was no better than the other, like at the very core.
yeah. And
And it also critiques leaders in a sense. Specifically speaking, it is a very huge critique on leaders and pretty much the people who are like in front of big movements, which is we have the two types, which is the one that wants to be and then the one that's pretty much forced into, which Katniss falls into it.
mhm.
um and usually the ones that want to do it usually have the wrong um intentions behind it, so to me it was quite ironic. And I don't know what do you think about Mockingjay and its criticism and portrayal of political figures?
I mean, it's like incredibly realistic and slightly scary because the first time I read Mockingjay, I still again because I said it before, I was reading, the last big series I read was was Percy Jackson, which was a little more black and white, though actually looking back, there are a lot of gray areas in that series, which we will eventually talk about on this podcast. But I still at the time had a very like black and white view of the world, and I'm like, well, Snow's obviously the bad guy, so Coin has to be the good guy, and just completely ignoring all the red flags. um but then looking and then like by the end just being like so confused, I'm like, no, Coin wouldn't do this. Why is she suggesting a final symbolic Hunger Games? But when in reality, no, that's on brand for Coin if you look back at all the red flags. And it's a good lesson of not blindly trusting your leaders all the time, because that's how democracy fails. And I mean, considering the fact that at the time we're recording this, the congressional hearings that Congress in the United States just had with the CEO of TikTok and the way they just acted like complete buffoons. I'm like, yep, our leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Like they don't know what they're talking about. There was a legit elected congressman who was asking, "Does your app connect to Wi-Fi?"
Oh my God.
I know. And then another one asking, just like being so unhinged, being like, where's my money that you're making with selling our data, or whatever he was asking. It was, anyway, that is a can of worms we won't get into, but let's just I couldn't watch those hearings for long because it was just frustrating. It just reminded me too much of trying to explain how text messaging works to my grandparents who are in their 80s.
Uh,
I love them so much. But Bubba, she's legit. I tried explaining what a podcast was to Bubba once, and she was not comprehending. I love her so much.
I mean, if she's in her 80s, I mean, she's already lived through, I don't know, like
Yeah,
80. Oh,
yeah. She
okay,
well, okay.
probably not.
She's gonna be 89 in November.
So she didn't probably live through the First World War, but she definitely lived through the Second
Oh yeah, she had two older brothers who fought in World War II. Speaking of war,
One. Speaking of war, but also what I think that like that book explores in a very interesting way are the concept of intention and results,
mm,
and how in war everything can go haywire. And I think they did a very cool parallel of especially Gale. By the way, Gale, I hate his guts. Special, like I've always hated his guts throughout the entire series, but this book was the last, like it was a cherry on top.
yeah.
But it also um because it's almost not an exact parallel, but also with um the guy that invented the atomic bomb, and then finding out what they used it for, and then Gale with creating the bomb that finally killed Prim, and them and him not knowing if it was his bomb or not, or if they had done it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about perception and how history is actually written by the winners, and
Mm-hmm.
how pretty much it makes you question about your own life and what we know about the wars and what we know about pretty much everything. And it makes you question whether those things are true or not, or if history was slightly bent in
Mm-hmm.
order to fit like a certain narrative. And in the book, it is quite interesting about how a lot of the characters that in the movie they had good endings, or at least a finished ending, and in the book they actually didn't, because we get to read the book through Katniss's eyes, and she doesn't know what happens to a bunch of them, which could be Effie in general, and what happens not only to the victors that are already used to war, but it pretty much gives a huge criticism on intention and result, and how pretty much everyone is gray, because and how easy humans are to become vindictive.
Mm-hmm. What does Plutarch say? We're stupid, fickle beings who are good at repeating our own mistakes or whatever, or with poor memories. What I if you've read the book, you know what quote I'm talking about.
Exactly. And well, what do you think about this exposition of how humans are actually very, very gray, and how they're looking for either power or recognition or leadership when it's not needed, or in a very, very weird case of them doing something and then everyone turning against them. Um, why do you think about that specific critique in the book?
I mean, it's I feel like it's accurate because humans we're stupid, but we're also very complicated. And we have many asides to us because and it's even I remember on like the DVD extras something for the first Hunger Games movie, Donald Sutherland, who of course played Snow in the movies, did like said something really fascinating. And if you have the DVDs or if you find the clip on YouTube, I highly recommend finding it. Actually, if I find actually I should find the clip on YouTube and link it in the show notes because I will absolutely butcher what he was saying in the interview. But he was basically saying how it really is all about perception, especially with world leaders and presidents, um because to Katniss and most of the outlying districts, Snow is this like scary person, but like to his citizens, he's the president. Like he's much more like beloved and respected, and like and Don Sutherland gave it a real life comparison to the president we had at the time, Barack Obama. How in general, like the average American citizen, especially if they voted for him, like they're like, oh, he's such a great guy. Whereas like the children in like all the third world countries where the wars were happening had a very different view of him, to say the very least.
Yeah.
It's not a
It,
hero.
yeah. It really, I think the book, what was at least a little bit difficult for me to read was how much Katniss changed
Mm.
throughout the into that specific book.
I mean, that was a question I did want to ask because you mentioned at the beginning how you didn't like how certain characters were handled. So let's dive into your views on that.
Yeah. To me, like a Phoenix character, his ending was heartbreaking.
Even Suzanne Collins says she regrets that.
I hated that ending because he as a character, I understand why you would kill him off because he was such he became a martyr and
Mhm.
he became like the symbol of what happens, like a very good like person put in a very very bad position, and then him having to sacrifice himself for a bigger cause. I get it. However, it was very hard to read, especially on the way that he went, because of like the mutants, the monsters. So he stepped out of the arena, but the arena followed him.
Yeah,
So
'cause-
it pretty much states how, from a very young age, all he knew, he was a true gladiator and he went out like one because he never stepped out of the arena. Like he never came out of the arena. Since he was 14, he was stuck inside the arena in different ways. And to me, it was also because there was water involved. So it was
oh,
quite
I just got chills thinking about that.
yeah.
Damn.
Because if you remember how he won his games was through water, and he went out fighting against, in this case before it was victors, in this case were monsters made out of the bodies of victors and the DNA of past victors.
Wait, did they?
Him
I don't think they incorporated DNA of past victors into those specific months.
really, like what I understood with like the all the mutts were made with the
No,
bodies of.
that was in the 74th games specifically. You know.
Oh,
Yeah, no, don't worry.
sorry, my bad. Oh, because also I remember that in the movie they had like humanoid.
Yeah, and they are described
Yeah,
in the books
sorry.
as being like humanoid, like these like white, like humanoid creatures with sharp teeth. I don't know. I have a hard time picturing them in the books. Either way, it's creepy and they smell and they specifically smell like Snow's roses, and that was on purpose specifically to freak Katniss out.
Exactly. But the fact that he went out fighting in the water,
Hmm.
pretty much, it almost allows his full circle to finish because it meant that he was never meant to survive. He had a death sentence.
Yeah, damn.
from the very beginning. And it's very, very like heartbreaking and sad, especially because he had a kid on the way.
And he didn't even know
And
it. He was pregnant at that point.
exactly. And he had just been married. I was like, this is not, but also don't you think that it's his death also served like a very in that like within the story of the book, a very like cruel reality that certain families go through,
Mhm.
especially with men at war,
Yeah.
that the women are left behind with kids, and they they don't even know it. And at least to me, that like Finnick's death was something that enraged me, and I cried. I know it's very, very stupid, but I put whenever I get angry, I put the book in the freezer. Like put books in the freezer. Okay, I put it in a Ziploc bag so it doesn't
Yeah.
so it doesn't get destroyed. But I put it in the freezer, and after that, I had to put it in the freezer. I had to take a breather, because to me that was just heartbreaking. Or like the Avok's death.
Oh yeah.
That was
Uh,
that was
wait, which Avox are you talking about?
the like the two that were with them in the
Oh no, Pollux. He was the Avox. He survives. It's his brother
sorry.
who died in the, which is
Exactly.
so fucking heartbreaking because his brother is the one who got him out of that life of Avox slavery.
Exactly. And to me, that specific part of it all is just like very good people died in a horrid and horrible ways, even worse than the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not prepared for it.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. However, but it makes you also question Katniss and her state of mind. Because in the first two books, you can still see a glimpse of, I don't know, teenage charm about her. And by the third book, all that fuzzy feeling around her is gone. And she's not fighting just because she has a dream. She's literally doing it because of survival.
And she feels like it's all she has left at this point.
And I think that if she would have died in the book, it's not that she would have become like a bigger martyr or whatever, but I don't think that she like that. I don't think she cared anymore.
Oh, she didn't. I had to put uh, last week's episode where I just talked where the last three chapters of Mockingjay. I like had to put a serious trigger warning on that episode because Katniss is at that point because it's after she loses Prim. She's actively planning not to be alive anymore. And I even unexpectedly just took a couple weeks off from the podcast because I'm like, I'm not okay enough to handle this at the moment. I need a break.
Exactly. Especially because if like you see the whole arc of the characters and all the flaws from every single character, or at least the victors, get exploited by the end. And a lot of them die because of their fatal flaw,
Mhm.
or they end up the way they end up because of their fatal flaw. Gale ends up being like this like police military person, but you can see his from the very beginning, you can see those traits, like those specific traits in him, and also the lack of responsibility. He never took responsibility for anything he did,
And
if you notice.
oh yeah, and I know like for a fact like Coin like clocked those traits in Gale like almost right away and was able to use that to her advantage and just mold him into the person she wanted. And I think in hopes of getting Katniss to be more cooperative because she's like, oh, this is the best friend of the Mockingjay. Surely he can, talk sense into Katniss or whatever. But she greatly underestimated how much Katniss really can't be controlled by anyone.
Exactly. Or, for example, Peeta.
Mm,
From the very beginning, he was willing to die for Katniss. And it's very ironic that he almost did. He suffered torture because of her.
And then
So it's like foreshadowing.
almost tried to kill her a few times because of
Exactly. And you can tell, especially in PETA, that like all the fuzzy things that made him PETA and made him this lovable baker boy, with huge strength, which was like almost like, the book Ferdinand the Bull.
the which book?
Ferdinand the Bull. It's like a children's book about a bull that he's a big bull and everyone's like supposed to be scared of him, but he just likes to smell the flowers. Like he's a cute one. He's like he's a sweetheart. He has like crazy strength, but he's a sweetheart. But you can see by the end that pretty much Snow turned him into a monster, and a monster specifically designed to murder Katniss. And Katniss, she became in the quote unquote slightly suicidal, slightly unfeeling person that she always was slightly scared to be.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a creator on TikTok, I think her username is Jack Frost is real, but anyway, she kind of went semi-viral on TikTok for making a series about Bella, about a skit series of her Twilight, being like, this is what I think it would be like if Bella Swan were like other girls. And it's one of my favorite series on TikTok, by the way. But yeah, she's also currently rereading The Hunger Games right now, and she points out how Katniss, like her perception of herself, especially in the first two books, has just been so off. Like has seen herself as this like selfish, like, unfeeling person, or whatever, when she's really a lot more selfless than she realizes. And then, like you said, in Mockingjay, because of just everything, and hurt people will hurt people. So Katniss is obviously very much hurting in this book, because she's been traumatized her entire life, because she did for sure like has like complex PTSD.
Yes.
So that shit builds up over time. So of course she's gonna not be the best version of herself in this book.
Yes. Especially, I find it quite interesting how in this book it is a constant reminder about the sacrificing of innocence,
Mm.
not only through Prim's death, not only through the final Hunger Games,
Mhm.
again with children, but also the bombing of children,
Like that,
and
like
how
that's truly the nail in the coffin of like Coin is no better than Snow, because she is also willing to use and sacrifice children for her own gain.
because they're pretty much sacrificing the very next generation. It's like you're sacrificing your future for this.
Yeah, and like that just again really proves like how corrupt Coin becomes, not just because she bombed kids, but like there's another level to it, because in District 13, after they had the smallpox epidemics not too long ago that wiped out a good chunk of their children in their population, and affected a lot of people's ability to have kids. Like a lot of women became infertile after that. So like when all these refugees came from District 12, they were excited because they were people who were fertile and could um re replenish the population. So like the whole idea in like District 13 culture is like children are very precious to them, and Coin just did not like completely went against that. She did a very big Uno reverse card, to say the least.
Exactly. Also, like in Mockingjay, one of my favorite moments is the introduction of the character of Tigris.
Of who?
Tigris?
Oh, Tigress. Yes.
Tigress, sorry. In Spanish
Sorry,
is
I'm
Tigris.
like I listen. My brain is weird places right now. I heard like Diego or something. I'm like, who's Diego?
No, sorry. I read the books in Spanish, guys. I speak Spanish. So in Spanish, Tigress is actually Tigris.
Oh, okay.
Tigris. Tigris. Which is oddly enough, like related to Snow.
I know. Like again,
It's
I'm
not in the book, in that book, but she is related to Snow, people.
Oh yeah, like I don't know. What was your perspective of Tigress before reading Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and now afterward?
I mean, I always thought that she was a badass
Yeah.
because she criticized of like the idea of beauty
Hmm.
and how she became an outcast because she literally became the epitome of whatever she worked, like everything she worked for, which was beauty,
Hmm.
but she became a monster.
Yeah.
So that concept to me was breathtaking because I was like, this is very, very cool. Also because of the idea that they were in the layer of the like of the lion, they were in the like the lion's den, and they were safe in the lion's den.
Yep.
So imagine how everything was outside.
Oh.
So to me, that was amazing.
Hmm.
It was very, very clever to make her a lion out of, because a lion is a predator.
Hmm.
So that to me was quite fascinating. Also about the fact that they didn't know that she was going to help them or not
Yeah.
in reality.
Mhm.
That and also the idea of camouflage, of like about camouflage within plain sight, like hiding in plain sight. Those were like little things that I was surprised of how well written they were. Um, but after reading the other book, I was like, I am such a big fan of that specific character. Also, because
Sure, I
I
went.
mean, it's quite odd that you are harboring people that want to murder a family of yours, like family.
Which just begs the question, like what are all the details? Like, what's the tea of the unraveling of Tigress and Coriolanus's relationship to the point where Tigress is just willing to harbor people that she knows are trying to kill her cousin, and either I don't know, I guess you could also read it as she doesn't want to kill them, but she also doesn't think they'll be able to get close, accomplish what they want to do because the odds are so stacked against them. I don't know.
And also, it's like a weird critique on not only an appearance, but it's quite ironic that she became a monster on the out, like quote unquote, a monster, a lion on the outside, when Snow stayed so human, like so humanly beautiful, and
Mhm.
he was the actual monster.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like that's like Uno reverse, just like she actually looks like a lion, but she's not like she's not a monster. The one who doesn't look like one is.
Yeah. He's a
So
sweet.
to me, that's genius.
I know. Like it's like goddamn Suzanne Collins. How dare she have the audacity to be such a good writer?
I know. And to me, when I
You're
okay,
making myself bad.
what was your reaction to the bombing of kids?
Oh, that was just horrifying. And also, I don't know if you had this experience reading this actually the other part that's horrifying, brain going in 10 directions, don't mind me. Um is the girl in the yellow coat. I don't know if you remember this part in the book.
Yes.
Yeah. When she when like Katniss like sees her, and then the next moment, boom, explosion, rebels have arrived, and clearly not being very careful because there are citizens right there, bystanders. And next time Katniss gets a look at that little girl in the yellow coat, and she's like not older than like 4 years old, and she's over the body of her mom, being like, "Mom, wake up!" And then she gets shot with bullet. Like that is, oh, and then just right after that is when all the kids get bombed. Like
Exactly.
I just remember like feeling like, a little sick, to say the least.
But to be honest, that was already had been foreshadowed
Mhm.
in previous books, especially because they bombed hospitals and schools.
I know, but
However,
it's still hard.
yeah. But um it was quite ironic that okay, Prim, who herself is still a child,
Mhm.
she is a doctor, so she's there to help. And they literally bomb them
Mhm.
when their forces are helping them. So it's like the fine. It's like, I'm sorry to like to put it like this, but it's like a bitch slap.
Yeah, no.
It's like a slap with the reverse of the hand.
And then and not to mention the fact that Prim was still 13 years old at the time, and in District 13 you're granted the title soldier at 14. So she was, which is still insanely young, but in the lore of this system, Prim should not have been there. It'd be one thing if she wanted to talk her way into helping more. But as a leader, like, because Coin would be the one who, someone high up like Coin would have to be the one to clear Prim going out there to help out in the field. But again, if you're a leader and you clear that, if you're a good leader and you give in to this 13-year-old wanting to go out and help in the war efforts, you have them go to base camp or something. You don't send them to the frontest of front lines unless you want something bad to happen to them.
That okay, that whole like operation that made me seriously question Katniss's mother's intelligence. I'm sorry to say this, but it really made me question her
I don't,
mother's intelligence
I don't think her
because
mom knew.
no, it's I mean, okay, you have two daughters. One of them's a child, and the other one pretty much is the face of the rebellion, whatever. She's going rogue. She does not care about you. You could die, she could no longer care. She couldn't care less. It's like, oh, Tuesday, my mom died. Because you have the worst relationship there is. You try to protect your younger child, your youngest child. If your older child can't protect herself, you notice, okay, if someone else wants to control your eldest daughter, the only way that they'll find a way to pretty much keep her in check or punish her is through your youngest daughter. So as a mom, you take care of both of them by literally shielding your youngest daughter. They already sent PETA with your oldest daughter, a guy that it was like haywired to murder her.
Yeah, he was like
And
barely starting to recover, and it's like, hey, let's throw him in a war zone.
then not only that, let's throw him in a war zone next to the person that he was he was like spark wired to kill. What, the quack not? Like what could go wrong? Seriously?
It's fine. Yeah.
Because it you as a mother, you start to question what are the intentions of people behind it. Your daughter earns them more. Like, yeah, it gains, okay. Your daughter is worth more dead than alive because she is.
Um, Unfortunately, I think it's a combination of, like you said, uh, Mrs. Everdene's not the most savvy
Smart.
cat, especially
Like smart.
especially like politically savvy. Like, I don't she's not as like in tune as like seeing all the strings attached as the way Katniss is. um and it's a combination of that and the fact that, like, because in toward the beginning of the book, when Katniss like goes to District 8 or wherever, and she comes back and her mom was like, I was worried, I didn't know you were gone, like you were there until like you were there already. And Katniss is like, oh, maybe I'll just have them, like, clear it with you, whatever, just let you know. And she's like, Katniss, no one clears anything with me.
And that is okay. That is a mom is like, I'm sorry to say this, but she sucks. We already know that, but she sucks. Like
I
royally
know,
sucks.
but that also again is kind of like foreshadowing to the fact that no one obviously cleared it with Mrs. Everdeen when Prim got sent out to the front lines. And I don't, she probably didn't know Prim was being sent out there until she was already gone.
But you don't look okay, as a mom, you don't get separated from your child no matter what. you make sure that she's within your eyesight at all times, especially because she's 13.
See, well, this is the same woman who, when the bombings were happening in halfway through the book, she showed up with Cat showed up to their bunker, and Cat is like, "Where the fuck is Prim?" And she's like, "I thought she was already down here."
Again, I was like, the worst mom, like the title for the worst mom goes to. I'm not kidding. There's worse moms. However, um, that to me was sort of brilliant. Like not only like through the writer, but like Coin, she is like, I'm sorry, but she's an evil mastermind because she really knows that Katniss is worth to her more dead than alive.
Mhm.
And I think that she knew that Katniss was going to be her undoing by the end. That's why she wanted to get Katniss's sister killed
Mhm.
from the very beginning.
Oh yeah, it's it's a fun time out here. Anyway.
And that's why she started like grab like almost like grabbing on Gale. She
Mhm.
literally left Katniss alone, something that Snow had not achieved,
Yep. Because
which
Cat,
is yeah,
even in the arena, Katniss had friends and allies.
exactly. Oh, one thing, okay, another character that I was like, Joanna's ending.
Yeah, that what you were saying earlier about how like some endings for characters were left unclear in the book. Well, both in the book and the movie, we don't really see Joanna again. Like we don't have any kind of update on her, and her ending is just so freaking sad.
Which is realistic, however, it sucks. And how a lot of the victors got pardoned. So to me, okay, that's something sits very wrong with me about that. I mean, yes and no, it's weird. And how Katniss gets punished, but not really. And her role as a hero is not fully developed later on in history. That bothers me.
Hmm. Although not a lot of victors ended up wound up surviving, because there was the whole victors purge thing where unless you were like Beatty or Hamish already safely tucked away in 13, all the other victors had been either, and unless you were safely tucked away in 13, or you were like under the protection of like the Mockingjay deal, you were either killed by the Capitol because they thought you might be with the rebels, or you were killed by the rebels because you're just a little too friendly with the Capitol. Even though a lot of the ones who were probably seemingly friendly with the Capitol, it was literally out of survival,
Exactly.
which is a good thing then, that when Katniss made the deal to be the Mockingjay, that Peeta, Joanna, the ones who were captured from the Quarter Quell, would be granted immunity, because they would not have survived that tribunal, I don't think.
So if you know that and you think about it, it's like death had already set a bounty on their heads. They were not, even though they survived, they were not supposed to survive for long.
Yep. And it's the kind of same thing with Prim. She was marked for death the moment she was reaped.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Which is odd and also quite hysterical and ironic. The fact that she died with a bomb that was on the little, like those little parachutes that they use in the arena.
Yep. hmm And allegedly created by someone who she saw as like an older brother.
She was killed by family. It
Mhm.
was like almost like Katniss tried to protect Prim from the arena without knowing that they were already both in the arena
Mhm.
from the beginning.
Yep.
So sparing Prim did absolutely nothing.
Other than getting the revolution going, but yeah, no, it's like her like
But
because her number one goal throughout all this shit was to protect Prim, and then in the end she couldn't do it, and despite everything she had done everything right to protect Prim, and it wasn't enough.
not only wasn't enough, it was like there are things you can't control, and that includes death. And that is heartbreaking. Very cool and very well written,
Yep.
but heartbreaking.
Yep. You can't control death, and you can't control your friend refusing to go to therapy, so instead he makes bombs.
It's like, what do you do today? Bombs. Okay. Oh, Effie's ending.
Yeah, we barely see Effie at all in the book, and I sometimes forget that because they obviously changed her story for the movie to include her more, which I think was the right decision because I freaking love Elizabeth Banks as Effie.
Exactly, yes.
Mhm. So that was a good call, movie. Good job.
But Effie's character is just like faded into the background, which kills me because she was, apart from Haymitch, well, not apart from Haymitch, she was the only one from the Capital team
Mhm.
that pretty much survived.
Yeah, because all the other prep teams were executed apart from, Katniss's prep team because they had been kidnapped by District 13 at the beginning of this book.
Exactly. So it's like, okay. But it's also rather symbolic that they killed them
Mm.
because they were supposed to make the victors look pretty,
Yep.
which is quite like it's rather ironic that everything about beauty and that in this specific third book is murdered
Hmm.
in a way. Fashion gone. All the people that were supposed to make you look pretty, like well, look, like make the ones that made the victors who they are, they were killed. Anyone that gave people power, in a sense, they all were killed.
Yeah. And
Which to me is like genius, but at the same time, it's like, damn.
I know.
It's
Like,
like, and then by the end, Katniss's ending, which was oddly enough, her final punishment was her heaven, what she
mhm.
always wanted.
Yep. It's like, because like the whole thing is they were like, well, it's like, yeah, she assassinated our new president, but she low key be a little crazy. It'd be kind of inhumane to execute her because she's suffering enough already. So we're gonna have to exile her for now. Let's just send her to 12 because no one likes to live there anyway. Huh? Huh? Right? Huh?
Not only that, it's like what ironic is like everything is about irony. Like they're like Phoenix ending is how he was supposed to die in the arena. Prim's ending is how she was supposed to die all along, which was in the arena.
Mm,
Um, Tigress, she became the monster without like physically without her being the monster, and then Snow was the actual monster all along, but he was hiding behind flowers, which is rather odd and ironic.
yep.
And then Coin dying, the way that she chose her kind of like her like her enemy to die,
Mhm.
it was like her choosing her own death.
Yep. And plus like, the arrow for the ceremony for the execution that Kat is supposed to fire is supposed to symbolize, the final like shot of the war and oppression or whatever. And it's like she used it to take out and it's in a way Coin was right. Katniss used it to take out the person who would have become the next President Snow.
Exactly. And Snow was oddly because he relied on people
Hmm.
and he made people like he made people scared. So the fact that he was pretty much mobbed to death.
Yep.
By the way, that's such a bad death. Like I like it just I imagine it and like it's like people like ripping their ears by their brute strength. I mean, that's a horrible way to die.
And just knowing, like, especially like being inside his head for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, knowing he has such a low opinion of like just people and humanity in general, and how, he sees himself as more superior and all other people are beneath him, but now all those people he sees as beneath him, like, ended his life.
But also irony, like ironically enough, he died or was supposed to die by the hands of the girl that reminded him of his first girl, the one that started it all.
Yep.
But the same way that he couldn't kill, or truly couldn't kill the first girl, the last girl, or like literally the last girl, couldn't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
That's like rather ironic, which is irony enough.
Yep.
And then the fact that Hey Mitch also goes to live down in 12 as like with Pete, like also, and Pete is there, and he's like at the end like fine, and then they have like him and Katniss like, oh, their punishment is they're safe even all along
Yeah.
with
Haymitch.
Haymitch.
Yeah. Haymitch
And Haymitch
Haymitch raises geese when he in between waiting for shipments of alcohol.
exactly like geese, like I'm sorry, but like I okay, I hate geese, I hate ducks. They're vicious little creatures. So the fact
I mean, so's Haymitch, so it's a match made in heaven.
exactly. So him dying off as a drunkard, a loved drunkard, is like a loving like uncle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like by the end, just Katniss and Peeta actually okay, her not wanting to become a mother, and then by the end saying yes
Mm-hmm.
to being a mother, and then them marrying in a way. Well, yeah, they were married and them having a family with two gorgeous little kids that, by the way, their descriptions of the kids are breathtaking.
And I'm w- and I'm willing to bet that the girls their daughter, like her middle name has to be like Primrose or something.
Yeah, like it has to. Oh, and the fact that Gail ended up being alone, I was like, yes, you deserve worse. You
Yep.
deserve to die alone.
If he's fucking off in District 2 and literally kissing and fucking other girls probably.
Like this is like what also like Gail's ending like really angered me. And I was like, they killed people for much less, and they let that bastard live
Yep.
when he killed murdered children.
Allegedly. No, or because no one can really prove it because he invented the weapon that killed all those kids. He didn't directly give the order.
Don't care. He invented it. He's at fault. I
Yeah.
know I'm like
He
being mean
gets to,
about it, but still.
he gets to live with that guilt for the rest of his life. Yay!
And also, it's like quite ironic that everything's like, yeah, I'm doing it for like Katniss. Dude, you lost her since you wouldn't run away with her since like book one.
I know.
It,
And when in like Catching Fire, when Katniss suggested like after the victory tour, like we should totally run away, and he was like, "No, because you said Peter would come too."
I don't. I'm sorry. Like, but okay, that means that Katniss and Gale was like the longest breakup ever.
It's true, and they never even really got together in the first place.
Like it was the longest breakup of a situationship ever.
You know,
They
bring
were
that.
situations like situationship.
Yeah, wasn't a relationship. It was a situationship by convenience.
Exactly. His convenience. Because I'm sorry, but he was a little shit. He always was a little shit.
No.
I was like, oh, he was pretty and he was tall. What else? What is he good for? Nothing.
Yeah.
And you have my poor Peta on the side. Like, Katniss was not giving him the time of day. And I was like, dude, he's like, you were almost starving to death. He saved you. You went to the arena and he protected you. He was willing to marry you without you liking him, and he was like, yeah, she hates Mike, it's fine, she doesn't like me. He was willing to marry, like he was willing to marry you without you liking him at all, just to keep you safe. Then he went back to the arena for you, for like lied that he was
He didn't
about to be a
amputate his
dad.
leg, for the record.
Exactly. Then he lied about going to be a father of a non-existent child, but he was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a dad for you. Then he got tortured for you. Then he went back to the war for you, didn't kill you, even though he was haywire to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was literally cast, like, once you did the whole thing and got punished and some like sent to into exile, he said, I want to go with her. He went into exile for you on his own accord, his like willingly. And then after years of him begging to be together finally, and like literally to be a dad, an actual dad, you finally say yes, okay, and finally you live happily ever after. But I'm sorry, homeboy went through everything to be endgame. He made sure he was endgame. He was like, oh wait, it's fine. I'll go to the arena twice. I'll twice.
Three
I'll get
times.
tortured. It's like, I'll go to the arena twice. I'll lose a limb. I'll I'll get engaged against my will. I'll get held hostage, then tortured, then messed up with, and then used as a weapon against you. So in the end, we could be together, away from everybody else. He was like, Katniss was like, how, like, what will it take for Peeta to be with me? For me to be exiled from everybody else. Literally. Peeta had to get rid of everybody else to be with her. I'm sorry, but oh boy. Like,
It's more nuanced than that, but yes, essentially.
Yeah. He literally got rid of everybody else to be with her. And then literally
I didn't even really try.
But still. And by the end, she's like, oh, I love them. No, it was like, yeah, we have PTSD together. And I was like, dude. Okay, Peeta is like Peeta is a hero, and he is the actual like example, the prime example of the one that perseveres is the one that wins. It's like she didn't like him at all, but he stayed there and she started to like him by the end because she had no choice.
No, she
None.
loved him. Like, because she legit says, what I need is not Gale's fire. What I need is the dandelion, the spring, the hope that life can continue, and only Peeta can give me that.
Exactly. But homeboy literally went to hell and back and lost limbs to do so.
Yeah. And also, this is the one like exception. This is like one of the very few exceptions to the trope of how, woman says at the beginning of story she doesn't want kids, but then has kids by the end because she's softened up or whatever. That is not Katniss, because the thing holding her back from wanting a family at the beginning is literally the Hunger Games. Like, the Hunger Games existing is the reason she doesn't want kids. But her and Peeta finally having kids in the end, and it took Katniss a long time, but for her to be in a place where she feels secure enough that she can like bring kids into this world is like, it's supposed to represent like how the world is healing and getting better.
Exactly. And by the way, the last line of the book was like, there are much worse games to play.
Chills every single time, and especially in the movie when she says that, and like Rue's music starts playing, like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
However,
immediately you're back. I think of Katniss in the arena with Rue when she says
yes. However, the last this is about the comment about the movie. The last hairdo that they gave Jennifer Lawrence as like older Katniss was literally, it was bad. It was bad. It's like they did her dirty. Like literally, they did her dirty. However, in the book, how she describes Peeta in such a cute way, it's like my heart. It's like everything just. It's like, poor dude. He literally went out. It's like, okay, Peeta, like Gale is like the longest like situationship breakup ever, and then Peeta is, I'll get the girl. I'll. It's like the nerdy guy just like stays there until she decides that it's fine. He literally is the trope of, if you stay there long enough, she might like you.
And then I just the interesting thing about this, like, quote love triangle is like on paper, like when you describe these people on paper, you would think that Katniss and Gale would make sense together when in reality they don't. And it's like, and again, it's like how, like, because Katniss, she symbolizes the Mockingjay. She does like what's unexpected, something that's unplanned. And if you are planning, and like it logically, like everyone expected her and Gale to be together, but she did the unexpected thing, and she wound up having Peeta as her soulmate.
Exactly. I don't know, it was just cool. And oh, like the foreshadowing of of how okay. Before the second time that they went into the arena, Peta said, "We already got married. We shared a loaf of bread. It's like a thing in 12,
Yep.
and she's pregnant with my baby." It's pretty much how they got married. Like in the end, how they
I know.
actually got married.
Peeta manifested that shit hard, and he didn't even know it.
Exactly. Like for the, like since the beginning, I was like, "Oh, it's the girl that I like." Manifested like them getting together and them not dying. But then he was like, "Yeah, we're married," and she's like pregnant with my baby. He manifested the end, like the end. I was like, "Yo, I want to be like that. I want to manifest."
I
Like,
Like, can we manifest, I don't know, me winning the lottery or something?
no, don't do the lottery. Like, have you read what happens to people that win the lottery? They have
Yeah.
like gruesome ends, like endings.
Okay, cannot in that case, long lost relative who for some reason leaves me their millions.
Yeah, that okay. That yeah, yes, that's better. Yes, that's better. That doesn't have like
That's
weird to do.
Yeah, and then I will do what I always say I would do if I suddenly came into a bunch of money. I will produce all my favorite shows and call all my friends and be like, "Hey guys."
Yes, it's like me, please.
Yeah.
So
It's like, "Hey Gabby, like Gabby, let's do our own production of Into the Woods or whatever."
yes, yes, yes. What? Yeah. It's like yes. It's like how many characters you want? Yes.
I'll take all of them, please. Or we just do a thing where it's like each night all of us play a different character. Can
Yes.
you imagine how chaotic that would be?
Ooh. Ooh.
It's like I go on as like it's like you go on as like Baker's wife or something, and you accidentally start singing on the steps of the palace. You're like, "Shit, that was last night."
Ooh, wait. However, one thing that I didn't like, that made me like about Mockingjay. I like the ending, but that just brought a whole list of like questions regarding us like, okay, how do the kids go to school? Are the kids other kids scared of them? It's like what's like the aftermath of like of it all?
It is mentioned like toward the end of the last chapter that eventually people start coming back, and the mines are shut down, but they started a farm to grow like herbs for medicines, and that's the new trade. So life is like District 12 is becoming a community again.
I know. But
So
still, I was like,
I know,
I
so
wanted to know about Annie
yeah.
and the baby.
Yep. And so basically just from that like couple lines of like how, it's like people started coming back to 12, we can only assume then by the time Katniss and Peeta's kids are school age that there would be an established school for them to go to.
I know. Also, it makes me question, I was like, what is like the grandma's relationship to the grandkids?
Yeah.
Does she visit or what?
I mean, I was kind of headcanon that since Mrs. Everdeen went to District 4 to start a hospital, that she and Annie are kind of friends.
I mean, maybe,
And like my head
but
is that eventually she'll come to visit 12 with Annie and her son.
yes, because I mean, Finnick. I'm sorry, like that death just like killed me, done, dead, killed. However, like by the end, Mockingjay to me was my least favorite book because it was, for me, was very hard to read because I was like, okay, I was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like war, but then the deaths were horrible in the worst way possible. So I was like,
It's like, can
I'm
we go
not
back?
getting
It's like, can we go back to talking about the propaganda side of war, please? Because that's what basically the first part of the whole thing was.
yeah, or can we get the carnage that we wanted, but like the heroic one, and not the horrible twisted shit that we're getting that's making me cry and making me question everything.
Yeah, well, that's what Suzanne. That was the point Suzanne Collins was trying to make, I think, unfortunately.
And she did it brilliantly, brilliantly.
Yeah.
Because also like the parallel of like the final war and the arena is like it was a war that they had always fought. It's like they enlisted for war without knowing, and they had been in war for years at that point.
Yeah. I mean, pretty sure like Bog says at one point, like the war really never ended for us, like after, the end of the first uprising.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Boggs because he was the only adult who was really looking out for Katniss to the best he could of his ability.
Yes.
And how he went and how in his dying moments he was going out of his way, because before that he was really starting to clue Katniss in on like, yeah, Snow's fucking not Snow, Coin is fucking shady, and then like
Yeah.
dying moments like giving her like control of the Hollow and saying don't trust them, do what you have to do.
Exactly. That to me was heartbreaking. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so mad when the other was like, no, it's me. I was like, dude, no. I was like, shut it. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna curse. But I was like, people are bitches.
um have you been listening to my podcast at all, Gabby? I curse all the time.
I know, but still, I'm okay. I have a nephew that's 2, and he's starting to repeat everything. So
Okay. In that case, make sure your nephew doesn't listen to this podcast.
oh, imagine him going, people are bitches. Like, okay, where did you learn that?
Don't turn this into that time when my brother was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, and just sitting on the couch like all happy as my dad is watching a Patriots football game, and of course being a typical dad, getting very into it, and then being like, God damn it, da, 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 da," and little toddler Brady very enthusiastically because he wants to be like, Dad, yeah, God. Like just wanting to be like that. And my dad just being like, oh, because he forgot Brady was there.
It was like the beauty of like fatherhood, parenthood, people.
Yeah, Pete a much different father than my father, for the record.
Oh wait, we don't know. PTSD could be weird. I mean,
I don't know. I guess we'll have to ask Suzanne Collins if we ever meet her. So, are there football games in Pan Am now in the aftermath?
however, we do know that what like whenever those kids have a birthday, they're gonna have killer cakes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like
Killer cakes.
hijacking and PTSD can't take that away.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's that's
He
okay. And
legit
what?
baked.
Okay, what are we?
Oh, sorry, because I was just gonna say he legit baked the wedding cake for Finnegan.
Exactly. Also, don't you think that it's also rather refreshing that in this specific couple, Katniss is the hunter and the one that like handles weapons and stuff, and Pete is the one that um bakes cakes.
Oh yeah, it's yes, it is very refreshing. I love it, and especially after because the last series I was fixating on at 14 before reading The Hunger Games was Twilight. So that
Yeah.
was a breath of fresh air.
It is a breath of fresh air. And also, okay, now looking like analyzing it, okay, it's a great book. It
Mhm.
is a great book.
I know
However,
we just weren't ready
my
for it at the time.
exactly. However, my romantic ass really likes like it's weird. In the first two books, there's still like some like heroicism attached to it, and it's like, oh yay, like the future. No, like book three is like, oh, you have dreams, you have aspirations. Let's blowing up and like blow it up in little pieces. But like legit, it was a great book. However, my romantic ass wants the so like the heroicism or like broke one or two, which is fake heroicism.
Mm-hmm. Very dark,
Actually,
twisted heroism, but
yes. In like I was like now thinking about it, I was like, what was I think we was going to like to end up in? It's like that was like a recipe for like shit going haywire.
yeah, this is like the you're reminding me of that time in middle school when I was watching Twilight for the first with a friend for the first time, or it was like her one of her first times seeing it or whatever, and I had seen it a bunch of times at that point. And it was like after it was like one of the final fights with like they're trying to kill James and Bella's like all bloody and screaming in pain. My friend's like, "Huh, there's a lot of blood in this movie." I'm like, "We're watching a vampire movie. What
What do
did
you
you
think?
expect?"
Like, what do you think they drink? Juice?
It's like, were you expecting sparkles and rainbows and unicorns? It's a vampire movie.
I mean, we did get sparkles.
Okay. Okay, then rainbows and unicorns.
We didn't get unicorns. We got werewolves. I'm sorry, like metamorphos in Spanish, which is shapeshifters. Because
Yeah.
apparently they're not even werewolves.
And we don't talk about that line because it was dumb and weird that it was shoved in at the last second in the book series. And it was so dumb they didn't even include that line in the movies.
They're not werewolves. They're like shapeshifters. I was like, everyone was like mad. That point was like, it was obvious, but like the fact that no one thought about it, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whatever, Stephanie.
I mean, because it's true. Because I mean, like, yeah.
Yeah,
That, but like
whatever.
coming back to Mockingjay.
We're not talking about
Yeah, no.
Twilight. We will eventually talk about Twilight in more in deeper depth on this podcast, and I will very likely be drinking a bottle of wine while doing so.
Yes. Yes.
Also, spoiler alert, when we talk about when we do a reread of the Percy Jackson series and we read through The Lightning Thief and Sea of Monsters, we'll of course do a movie talk for the terrible movies, and I will be getting drunk throughout those episodes, guys.
Ooh, did you know that 50 Shades of Grey is just
I
like
know, I fucking know. And I was so mad when I learned when I was in high school. I was so mad when I learned that that was based off Twilight fan fiction, not because of that it came from Twilight fan fiction, but because as a fan fiction writer, I'm like, shit, she's giving us a bad name. Because
you say a bad name. Okay, you say a bad name, but okay, I read the books, they were entertaining.
okay, but let me just say, I'm reading a Once Upon a Time fan fiction right now that someone recommended me, and is legitimately one of the best like fics I have ever read. It is better written than some books I read, and it is better written and more well thought out than pretty much 99% of the episodes of Once Upon a Time. And I'm saying this with love because I am trash for the entirety of that show, but still,
Okay, but okay.
way off topic.
However, okay, book versus movie, Mockingjay. Book way better.
Yeah. Although movie, admittedly, I watch more because I'm a little less depressed after watching Mockingjay versus reading it.
I mean, yes. However, it was okay. I get the fact that they're running, but it even looks okay. I know that in the book, it looks a little bit like a video game.
Mm-hmm.
But when they told me that in the movie would also look like a freaking video game, I would have said, no, it actually does look like a video game.
Yeah. Whoopsie daisies.
You say whoopsie daisies, I'm mad. I'm like, but it's like Hollywood. Where are the where are like all the shots? And where are the explosions? I mean, certain like some okay, the goo was very well done. Some of the things were extremely well done in the
Mhm.
movie, extremely well done. However, I think that the movie beautified a lot of the aspects about.
Yeah, and I do think again because it's because they had to keep that PG-13 rating.
But why couldn't they go like Harry Potter? Like the first three movies are like cute and like kid friendly, and that no, the first two movies are like cute and like slightly kid friendly. The third one, it just went. That's when it went haywire. Why couldn't they do the exact same with like the Hunger Games?
Um, but it is I would probably come with a more intelligent answer, but it is 12:09 where I am right now. So, yay.
So we're cutting. So what's your verdict? Mockingjay, yay or nay for the book?
Book, yay. Though I need to add some extra doses of antidepressants.
Yeah. Yes. And book for me, it's a double yay.
Yeah.
It's a great book. And I have to say, just like the whole book could have been shit. The last scene, the last line, there are worse games to play. Best closing line ever.
And oh, and also I this book, like, when the books were coming out, it gave us the hanging tree, and like knowing an after ballad, like the song means so much more now.
Exactly. It's like, okay, it makes me angry that they did okay, despite that okay. I love the movies, but it makes me angry that they did the movies when they did the movies because I think that now because of the special effects, because of everything. No, like I love the actors. That's it has nothing to do with the actors. It's just as a final product with like today's like special effects and everything, the like those specific books could have looked so good. And instead of movies, I would have liked a series. It would have been rather cool.
Yeah. What they tried to do with the last Allegiant book. Like with Hunger Games, it could have been done very, very well. Oh, also because I'm annoying and I have to bring it up, speaking of the hanging tree, if Greasy Say really is Lucy Gray, then I love the fact that she takes care of Katniss at the very end when she's in her depressive, very bad depressive episode before Peeta gets back.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just like now that we know everything as readers and like everything, just like the whole book, like the whole
Everything.
world.
Who knows?
Yeah, I know, like, but expanded. We can like in even like Suzanne's. I think that she said in an interview that she was not a great writer. She was a great concept creator, but not a great writer. I literally wanted to punch her because the deaths in the third book were so well written that I can like calmly and happily say for the both of us that they were depression triggers.
Yeah. But in a
So
weird way handled more gracefully, I think, than other works out there that try to talk about depression. 13 Reasons Why.
exactly. And how it was written, it was refreshing. It was a new concept, like the new way of like looking at war that was not the typical, oh, like Carnage one that we're used to. It was just great like it was a monstrosity for the soul. However, it was like beautifully written. I was so angry for a lot of the characters, but life's unfair, so okay, fine, I'll give it to the writer. And I love the fact that I think Mockingjay is the reason why you are such a big fan of the books. I think, Ellie.
I mean, yeah, because there's so much like depth. It adds so much more like depth and realism where like it really solidifies the Hunger Games series as a book series that like when you go back to as and revisit as an adult, you see more, you understand more. And then I don't know, I'm sure in like a decade when I reread the books again, there'll be layers that I pick up that I'm not picking up on now.
Exactly.
Bookish
Very bad representation of adults, like so bad representation of adults. Realistic, but very bad.
Bookish Babbles, revisiting the Hunger Games again 10 years later.
Woo!
Oh God. Uh,
10 years.
yeah, we'll be in our mid-30s in 10 years.
No! No! No, I'll be 20 forever.
Okay.
There, I said it.
Yeah, good plan. Meanwhile, I pretty sure I have the soul of a grandmother.
No, you're partly Japanese. You'll still look 20, even when you're 50.
True. No, but inside, I feel like a grandmother.
Oh, but everyone's a grandmother in the inside. Everyone who's like a decent reader
Yeah.
is a granny on
Yeah.
the inside.
Listen, as soon as my shelves are built, I'm also going to be dragging my brother to IKEA to get the reading chair that I desperately want for this room.
It's gonna be breathtaking, guys. I've seen, okay, you cannot see it, but I'm looking at the progress and it's breathtaking.
Sneak preview. There's on the wall that I'm pointing at right now. That'll be another bunch of shelves. So, you need to. And yeah, Gabby, you need to come up and stay with me at some point.
Yes, because guys, this room is like envy worthy, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's like a committed reader will appreciate the level of aesthetic like satisfaction and goodness that this room gives. I'm
And
so excited, guys.
anyway,
Thank you so much for inviting me and
with it,
talking about one of the best books ever.
I feel like we're all over the place, but it's fine because this
Yes.
book's a little all over the place because Katniss's mental state is all over the place. And
Yeah.
if and you
Why
know,
wouldn't it be?
yeah, we'll get the gang back together very soon to talk about the movies, and you and I can explain to them some of the things that were missed, as we always do.
Oh yeah.
And I say it to y'all with love because I actually find the point of view of people who've only seen the movies really fascinating.
Exactly. It's like fresh eyes on the
Yeah.
whole thing.
And then I always love explaining to people who have only seen the movies how, like, in the first book, the 74th games, how it's like, oh yeah, I remember the dogmas, and they're like, oh yeah, that was super like freak, those months are super freaky. I'm like, yeah, well, did you know in the books they look like the dead tributes? And they all can be like, what the fuck?
Exactly. It's like, why wasn't that in the movie? It's like, yeah, it's supposed to be for children, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Apparently,
and the way I explain it always freaks them out.
exactly. Which is odd about like children's movies. Is like, okay, the idea of like children gladiators killing like children killing them like killing each other for entertainment is okay, but apparently a monster that's so like sort of looks like a dead person isn't.
Yeah. Anyway, we should wrap this up because I'm yawning and I work in the morning. Well,
It's midnight.
midnight. I was playing. I had that song stuck in my head earlier while I was painting, so I was just playing that on a loop. You got that dreams need fading. And like it's a very catchy and a nice upbeat song that you want playing while you're working.
Exactly. And later on, guys, I think that we might do like playlist about books. I was like, oh, play like
I mean,
book inspired playlists.
I have been there's so for those of you who listening know that I have recently read Chain of Thorns and I've been a hot mess ever since, like a little more than usual. And a creator that I follow on YouTube who was a big fan of that series, she made a playlist on Spotify called like The Last Out. Basically, it's just a collection of Taylor Swift songs that she thinks suits the characters in that series. So I have been listening to that.
However, it's such a treat to listen to you and to be in this podcast with you. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, and as always, it's wonderful having you around to contribute to the chaos.
Chaos, yes, me.
But yeah, well, hopefully we're somewhat better organized next time, but who knows? Probably not. I do have a couple other episodes I want to do that are Hunger Games related before we, officially wrap and move on to the next book and the next series because clearly I just don't want this to end because I love talking about the Hunger Games. And also, we're finally having a Hunger Games renaissance on TikTok, so woohoo! Finally.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
It's like the series needs all the love it can get. It deserves all the love it can get.
Yeah, I just found it funny that the Hunger Games videos like really started blowing up on TikTok during the 2 weeks that I took a break from podcasting. I'm like, really, guys? Been doing this for
Now,
I'm like, really, guys? Been doing this for like a year now, and now you decide to start the Renaissance?
now,
Like, I've
why?
been ready for the Renaissance for over a year now. I've been making this content for over a year. Now, y'all decide to start the Renaissance. I see
Like,
how it is.
why?
Yeah. But in all seriousness, I am thrilled the Renaissance is happening. I'm so happy people are rereading the series and discovering and even reading it for the first time, watching these movies for the first time. It's so exciting and I love it so much. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much. My socials are always in the show notes, as are Gabby's, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. This is a great podcast. And if you want to read the books, read them. Reading is good, guys. And this series is so worth it.
Yep.
Have a great night or day. And thank you so much for everything. And thank you for listening.